A rainy Tuesday in Manhattan's criminal court building. James Wilson, a 27-year-old black man, sits shaking at the defendant's table, tears streaming silently down his face. Two police officers in the back row snicker, nudging each other. The older officer, Lieutenant Frank Morgan, doesn't whisper at all. "Man up, boy." The courtroom freezes. His words hang like poison in the air. What they don't see is the imposing figure pausing at the courtroom doors, briefcase in hand. She's heard everything, and they have no idea who she is. Have you ever witnessed someone being mocked in their darkest moment? Tell us in the comments and hit like and subscribe if you believe respect matters. The Manhattan Criminal Court never slept, a perpetual machine of justice and injustice grinding equally through the privileged and the powerless. Inside courtroom 214, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like persistent flies, casting everyone in the same sickly pallor regardless of the color of their skin. Dr. Maya Richardson entered silently, her tailored navy suit and pearl earrings contrasting with the worn wooden benches and scuffed linoleum. At 48, she moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had spent decades navigating hostile spaces. Her natural hair was styled in a short, elegant cut that framed angular cheekbones and eyes that missed nothing, especially not injustice. For 20 years, she'd been one of the most respected neuropsychiatrists on the East Coast. Her testimonies had swayed juries in over 200 cases. Her research on trauma and cognition had rewritten textbooks. The New Yorker had once called her the woman who changed how America's courts understand the human mind. And today, she was here for James Wilson. In the third row, Lieutenant Frank Morgan leaned back, arms crossed over his barrel chest. 19 years on the force had hardened him into the kind of cop who saw the world in absolutes, criminals and citizens, threats and non-threats. His thinning hair was cut military short, and the creases around his mouth seemed permanently downturned. His partner, Officer Reyes, was half his age, but already learning to mirror his contempt. Morgan's case against Wilson was supposedly airtight, possession with intent to distribute, resisting arrest. An easy conviction in a system where less than 2% of cases ever went to trial. What Morgan didn't know was that Wilson's case was about to become that rare exception. Maya's eyes settled on James Wilson, noting the tremors in his hands, the way his shoulders curved inward protectively. Signs she recognized immediately. Not guilt, trauma. The public defender beside Wilson looked overwhelmed, drowning in case files, his tie slightly askew. He hadn't even noticed Maya enter. The prosecutor, a sharp-featured woman with a reputation for ruthless efficiency, was reviewing documents at her table, occasionally glancing up at the clock. Judge Harold Brennan hadn't arrived yet. The room existed in that liminal space before authority enters, whispering, shifting, waiting. Maya took her seat silently, placing her leather briefcase on the floor beside her. When Morgan laughed again at something his partner said while nodding toward Wilson, she didn't react. Not yet. Today wasn't about emotion. It was about evidence. Have you ever been judged before someone knew your full story? Tell us in the comments, and if you believe in hidden strength, hit like and subscribe. "Another druggie thinking tears will save him," Morgan announced, loud enough for the front of the courtroom to hear. "Seen it 1,000 times. Officer Reyes chuckled on cue, eyes flicking toward Wilson's trembling shoulders. Maya closed her leather-bound notebook but remained seated. Her stillness drew attention, a center of gravity in a room full of movement. Morgan finally noticed her, eyes narrowing slightly. Something about her composure bothered him, like a suspect who wasn't intimidated during questioning. "You with the defense?" he called out dismissively. Maya didn't answer, simply held his gaze until he looked away first. The air between them crackled with unspoken challenge. What would you do when facing open disrespect? Drop your answer below and hit like and subscribe. "Hey, I'm talking to you," Morgan pushed, rising from his seat. What's your business here? The public defender glanced up nervously as Morgan stepped into the aisle, looming over Maya's row. Other conversations in the room died out, attention shifting to the confrontation brewing. Some people, Morgan continued when she didn't respond, think they're above basic courtesy. Maya finally looked up, her expression unchanged. And some people, she replied evenly, think a badge grants immunity from basic decency. The room went silent. Even the court stenographer's fingers froze over her machine. Morgan's face flushed. You got something to say about officers of the law, lady? I have something to say about officers who mock defendants before they've been convicted of anything, Maya replied, closing her notebook, particularly when that defendant exhibits clear signs of post-traumatic stress. Morgan scoffed, looking around for support. Officer Reyes shifted uncomfortably in his seat. You some kind of social worker? Dr. Maya Richardson, she said simply, not offering her credentials. Something flickered across Morgan's face. Confusion, then dismissal. Well, doctor, he emphasized the word with sarcastic disdain. When you've spent 20 years dealing with criminals who'll say or do anything to avoid consequences, you develop a sense for theatrics. That man's not traumatized. He's acting. And your medical opinion is based on what training exactly? Maya asked. The doors at the back of the courtroom opened. A clerk entered, announcing, All rise for the Honorable Judge Harold Brennan. As everyone stood, Morgan leaned down, whispering harshly, You should watch yourself. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Maya rose slowly, straightening her jacket. That's the difference between us, Lieutenant. I know exactly who I'm dealing with. Morgan retreated to his seat as the judge took the bench, but his eyes remained fixed on Maya, suspicious now. He whispered something to Officer Reyes, who began scrolling through his phone, presumably looking her up. James Wilson still hadn't turned around. His attorney placed a hand on his shoulder, whispering something in his ear. For the first time, Wilson looked back, his eyes meeting Maya's. Something passed between them. Recognition, perhaps. Or hope. Judge Brennan adjusted his glasses, reviewing the docket. Case number 47289, People versus James Wilson. Are all parties present? The prosecutor stood. Present for the people, Your Honor. The public defender rose next. Present for the defense, Your Honor. And we have an additional resource joining us today. Morgan's head snapped up. If you were standing in Dr. Richardson's shoes, would you reveal your credentials now, or wait until the perfect moment? Comment your choice below. Also like and subscribe now. Additional resource? Judge Brennan peered over his glasses. Yes, Your Honor, the public defender continued with newfound confidence. Dr. Maya Richardson has agreed to testify as an expert witness for the defense. Morgan's face darkened as he finally connected the dots. The neuroscientist? He muttered to Reyes. Judge Brennan's eyebrows rose. Dr. Richardson, your reputation precedes you. Unusual to see you in a possession case. Maya rose, her voice clear and resonant. Your Honor, this isn't a simple possession case. It's about police misconduct and the deliberate exploitation of a combat veteran suffering from PTSD. Morgan shot to his feet. This is procedural nonsense, Your Honor. The defendant was caught with drugs, plain and simple. Sergeant Wilson, Maya corrected firmly, served 3 tours in Afghanistan. He was decorated for saving his entire unit during an ambush. The prosecutor interjected. The defendant's military record, while commendable, doesn't excuse criminal behavior. It becomes relevant, Maya countered, when officers trigger his trauma response deliberately, then interpret that response as resistance. Wilson's shoulders shook again, but this time with relief rather than fear. Someone finally understood. These are serious allegations, Judge Brennan said. With serious evidence, Maya replied, lifting her briefcase. I've reviewed body cam footage that Officer Morgan conveniently failed to include in discovery. Morgan's face went from red to white. That's impossible, You mean because you deleted it? Maya asked, her voice soft, but carrying throughout the silent courtroom. Technology leaves traces, Lieutenant. Always. Morgan lunged forward. You can't come in here and— Lieutenant! Judge Brennan's gavel cracked like a gunshot. One more outburst and I'll have you removed. If someone tried to bury evidence that could save an innocent person, would you risk everything to bring it to light? Drop your answer in the comments also. Hit like and subscribe. Judge Brennan adjusted his glasses, the courtroom still vibrating from his gavel strike. Dr. Richardson, these are extraordinary claims that require extraordinary evidence. I understand, Your Honor, Maya replied, removing a flash drive from her briefcase. This contains the original footage from Lieutenant Morgan's body camera, retrieved from cloud backup before it could be permanently deleted. I've also brought my full analysis as a certified trauma specialist. The prosecutor rose. Your Honor, if evidence has been withheld, the people request time to review. Agreed, Judge Brennan said. We'll take a 30-minute recess. Dr. Richardson, please provide copies to both the prosecution and the court. As Morgan was escorted to the hallway by court officers, his partner Reyes remained frozen in his seat, eyes wide with realization. The rookie hadn't known. Morgan had acted alone. Maya approached James Wilson, who looked up at her with disbelief. You found it? He whispered, his voice hoarse. The video shows what really happened? Maya nodded. It shows you having a flashback when Lieutenant Morgan shouted orders that triggered your combat training. It shows you covering your ears, not resisting. And it shows the drugs being placed in your pocket after you were already handcuffed. Wilson closed his eyes, a different kind of tear falling now. Why? He asked. Why did you take my case? Maya placed a hand briefly on his shoulder. Because 5 years ago, they did the same thing to my brother. But we didn't have the evidence. She straightened. This time, we do. Outside the courtroom, Morgan paced the hallway, phone pressed to his ear, desperately calling his union representative. When the truth finally comes to light, would you use it for justice or revenge? Share your decision in the comments. Also hit like and subscribe. When court reconvened, the energy had transformed. The prosecutor sat stiffly, having reviewed the footage during recess. Morgan had been ordered to sit in the front row, separated from his partner. Judge Brennan's expression was granite. Having reviewed the evidence provided by Dr. Richardson, Judge Brennan began, I am ordering an immediate dismissal of all charges against James Wilson. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. Furthermore, the judge continued, removing his glasses deliberately, I am issuing a referral to the district attorney's office for an investigation into Lieutenant Frank Morgan for evidence tampering, false arrest, and perjury in his sworn statements. Morgan jolted forward. Your Honor, this is— Lieutenant Morgan, Judge Brennan cut in, voice like steel. I strongly advise you to remain silent. You are currently digging yourself into a deeper hole than the one you already occupy. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, the people request Lieutenant Morgan's badge and service weapon be surrendered pending investigation. So ordered, Judge Brennan replied, without hesitation. A court officer approached Morgan, hand extended. For a moment it seemed Morgan might refuse. Then, with shaking hands, he unclipped his badge and removed his weapon, surrendering both. Mr. Wilson, Judge Brennan said, his tone softening slightly. On behalf of this court, I apologize for the injustice you've experienced. You are free to go, and I will be personally recommending that the city settle any civil claims you might bring without requiring litigation. Wilson nodded, unable to speak through his emotion. Maya gathered her materials quietly, her work complete. Justice, for once, hadn't required a long battle. Just the right evidence in the right hands. Would you let injustice slide if fighting might cost you everything? Or would you stand your ground no matter what? Share your choice in the comment, also like and subscribe. As the courtroom began to empty, Maya found herself surrounded by whispers and stares, some admiring, others calculating, particularly from other officers who had come to support Morgan but now maintained a careful distance. Officer Reyes approached her hesitantly while Morgan was being processed by court administration. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "About the evidence. About what really happened." Maya studied the young officer. "And now that you do?" "I've only been on the force 8 months, Reyes said, his voice low. "Morgan was my training officer. I thought—" He trailed off, then squared his shoulders. "I need to make a statement about other cases, don't I?" Maya nodded. "Yes, and it won't be easy." "But it's right," Reyes finished. Across the room, the public defender was explaining to James Wilson what would happen next: the expungement process, the likely civil settlement, the veterans' support programs Maya had arranged. Wilson kept looking over at Maya, as if unable to believe someone had actually fought for him. When their eyes met again, he mouthed a simple "thank you." The prosecutor approached Maya next, extending her hand. "Dr. Richardson." That was illuminating. Maya accepted the handshake. "Are you going to pursue the case against Morgan?" "Aggressively," the prosecutor confirmed. "And I'll be reviewing all his arrests from the past 5 years. This may not have been isolated." "It wasn't," Maya said firmly. "My research team has identified statistical anomalies in arrest patterns among certain officers, including Morgan. I'll have the data sent to your office." The prosecutor nodded, impressed. "You came prepared for more than just this case." "This case is just the beginning," Maya replied. Judge Brennan was the last to leave the bench. As he passed, he paused beside Maya. "Dr. Richardson, a word?" They stepped into a quiet alcove in the hallway. "That was quite the display of preparation," the judge said. "Most expert witnesses don't come armed with that level of evidence." "Most expert witnesses aren't personally invested in systemic reform," Maya replied. Judge Brennan studied her. "Your brother, the one you mentioned to Wilson, was his case in my court?" "No. Judge Marcus Hoffman. He retired shortly after." "Hoffman," Brennan repeated, his expression darkening. "He had a reputation for deferring to law enforcement." "Yes," Maya said simply. "My brother served 10 years before the Innocence Project found similar patterns in his arresting officers' cases. By then, the damage was done." Judge Brennan was quiet for a moment. "You're doing this systematically, aren't you? Building cases against officers with suspicious patterns." "I'm a scientist, Your Honor. I follow data, and the data shows that certain officers have statistically impossible luck in finding evidence." "Like Morgan." "Like Morgan," she confirmed, "and 17 others in this jurisdiction alone." Judge Brennan exhaled slowly. "That's going to make you some powerful enemies." "Truth often does," Maya replied. As they parted ways, Maya watched James Wilson shake hands with his attorney and walk toward the exit, shoulders straighter, head higher. One man free. 17 more officers to go. Outside the courtroom, reporters had already gathered, alerted by the sudden dismissal of charges. Morgan pushed past them, face rigid with fury and humiliation. When he spotted Maya standing quietly at the periphery, he changed direction, heading straight for her. "You think this is over?" he hissed, close enough that only she could hear. "You have no idea what you've started." Maya didn't flinch. "No, Lieutenant. For the first time, you have no idea what's coming." "What would you do if you had the power to expose corruption in an entire system?" Let's talk about it. Hit like and subscribe. 3 days later, Maya sat in her office at Columbia University Medical Center, reviewing data on her computer when a knock came at her door. "Dr. Richardson, there's a Captain William Hayes here to see you." Maya glanced up. She knew the name, Head of Internal Affairs, NYPD. The system's response had begun. "Send him in." Captain Hayes entered alone, declining her offer to sit. Dr. Richardson, I'll be direct. You've created quite a situation. Lieutenant Morgan created the situation, she corrected. I merely exposed it. Morgan's been suspended. An investigation is underway. Hayes placed a folder on her desk. But I'm here about your broader project. These 17 officers you're investigating. Maya's expression remained neutral. What about them? The commissioner wants to offer you a deal. Consult with us internally. Help us clean house without the public spectacle, without damaging the department's standing. There it was. The system protecting itself, offering compromise dressed as collaboration. And the cases these officers have built? The people wrongfully incarcerated? Hayes hesitated. We'd review them, case by case. Over how many years? While those innocent people remain behind bars? Maya shook her head. The evidence goes public. All of it. You're declaring war on the entire department. No, Captain, just on those who betrayed their oath. Hayes's expression hardened. The commissioner suspected you'd say that. He wanted me to remind you that academic tenure doesn't protect against investigation. Your brother had a sealed juvenile record, didn't he? Interesting how that might become public. Maya stood slowly. Are you threatening me, Captain? I'm advising you of potential consequences. Would you compromise with a corrupt system for safety's sake? Let us know in the comments. Also, like and subscribe. Maya didn't sleep that night. By morning, her decision was made. She arranged an emergency meeting with James Wilson, his newly appointed civil rights attorney, the district attorney, and representatives from the Veterans Justice Outreach Program. They gathered in a private conference room at the attorney's office. They've offered me a deal, Maya explained. Internal investigation, quiet resolution. Wilson's attorney leaned forward. And you're considering it? No. Maya opened her laptop. I'm countering it. The full data goes to the New York Times and Washington Post tomorrow morning. But first, Mr. Wilson gets to decide how his story is told. James Wilson looked startled. My story? Your combat record, your service, your wrongful arrest, and most importantly, your voice as the first plaintiff in what will become a class action lawsuit against the NYPD for systematic targeting of veterans and minorities. The district attorney shifted uncomfortably. Dr. Richardson, that's going to create a firestorm. It should, Maya replied. 17 officers. Over 400 potentially wrongful convictions. This isn't about one bad cop. It's about a system that protects them. Maya turned to Wilson. But it has to be your choice. The spotlight will be intense. Wilson was quiet for a long moment. Then, my unit in Afghanistan, we had a saying. If not me, then who? He straightened in his chair. I'll do it. By that afternoon, Maya had secured an emergency hearing with Judge Brennan. With the district attorney's reluctant cooperation, they filed for immediate review of all cases connected to the 17 identified officers. As they left the courthouse, reporters swarmed the steps. Captain Hayes watched from a patrol car across the street, phone pressed to his ear. Dr. Richardson, one reporter called out. Is it true you're alleging systematic misconduct across the NYPD? Maya stepped to the microphone, Wilson standing tall beside her. What we're alleging is that the evidence speaks for itself. 17 officers, 400 lives. By this time tomorrow, every case file will be public, every pattern exposed. She paused, making direct eye contact with Captain Hayes across the street. And to those who thought they could threaten their way out of accountability, remember this: the truth doesn't negotiate. If someone threatened you to stay silent about wrongdoing, would you retreat or push harder? Drop your take in the comments. Also hit like and subscribe. The headlines dominated every news cycle for weeks. Systematic injustice, NYPD scandal, rocks criminal justice system. 400 cases under review as evidence tampering scheme exposed. Veterans, minorities targeted in police corruption scandal. 6 weeks after Maya's evidence went public, she sat in the gallery of a federal courtroom. The hearing today wasn't about a single case. It was about systematic reform. James Wilson sat at the plaintiff's table, now representing thousands. Lieutenant Morgan and 12 other officers occupied the defendant's section, their attorneys clustered around them like a protective barrier. The police commissioner had resigned 2 weeks earlier. Captain Hayes had been demoted pending investigation. Officer Reyes had become a key witness, his testimony corroborating the data patterns Maya had uncovered. From the federal bench, Judge Elena Vasquez addressed the packed courtroom. Based on the evidence presented, this court finds sufficient cause to certify this as a class action lawsuit and to order the immediate review of all cases handled by the implicated officers. She continued, her voice carrying authority that silenced even the whispers. Furthermore, the court orders the immediate release, pending case review, of all individuals currently incarcerated based solely on evidence provided by these officers where no additional corroborating evidence exists. The gallery erupted. Families of the wrongfully convicted wept openly. Court officers made no move to quiet them. Justice delayed is justice denied, Judge Vasquez concluded. This court will not participate in further delay. As Morgan was led out in handcuffs, now facing federal charges of civil rights violations, he locked eyes with Maya one final time. The hatred there had transformed into something else. Defeat. Outside the courthouse, James Wilson addressed the cameras, Maya standing quietly behind him. "Today isn't about revenge," he said, voice steady. "It's about restoration. Not just for me, but for everyone who wasn't seen, wasn't heard, wasn't believed." He turned, gesturing Maya forward. "Without Dr. Richardson's courage, none of this happens. One person with evidence can change everything." Maya stepped to the microphone briefly. "The work continues. This is one department in one city. The pattern exists everywhere." As she stepped back, reporters called out questions. "What's next, Dr. Richardson? Will you pursue cases in other cities?" Maya smiled slightly. "Justice isn't a destination. It's a journey, and we've only just begun. Some say the system can never truly change. Others believe one person with truth can transform everything. Which side are you on? Tell us below. Like and subscribe if you believe in standing firm for what's right." The camera panned across the federal courthouse steps where dozens of newly freed men and women embraced their families. Among them, James Wilson stood tall, helping an elderly man navigate the stairs. This wasn't about headlines anymore. It wasn't about one officer, one case, or even one city. It was about what happens when silence breaks, and someone finally says, "Enough." Dr. Maya Richardson had returned to her office at Columbia, already reviewing data from 3 other cities where patterns had emerged. Her phone hadn't stopped ringing with calls from other experts willing to join the fight. Real justice doesn't always come with dramatic confrontations. Sometimes it arrives quietly, in spreadsheets and statistical analyses, in courtrooms and careful testimonies. Like Dr. Richardson, we don't need power to make change. We just need conviction and evidence. Because justice doesn't begin in courtrooms. It begins in people who refuse to look away. If you enjoyed this story of courage and accountability, like, share, and subscribe for more justice stories like this.